All right, part two. As I promised you guys, after looking at the first day of test play over at IAAPA for Pump It Up X2, or 2X, or XX, or Dos Equis, however you want to pronounce that name. The most interesting thing was actually some of the re-rated charts. So today we're going to look through the things that are being re-rated for double mode. And we're going to go ahead and just start right at the top here, and it has Bad Apple. Clearly overrated as a 21. This was always a stupid rating. 20 is a much better rating. I think that's good. Honestly, you could have gone all the way to 19. I think 21 was just an absolutely stupid rating for this, so that's very good. Beat of the War 2, Double 12, I've never played it. I'm sure I've played it, but I don't remember it at all, so... as mentioned last time, this is a chart that has been in the game that will now be available for rank mode. So if anybody really likes this chart, good. Beat of the War 2 19 feels a little bit weird as a 19. I think that's reasonable. Changing that to a 20 is fine. B D19 is a toned down version of the original Nightmare. It's an intentionally nerfed version of the 21, and I think changing it to a 20 is okay if you change the original to a 22. That's fine. I think both of those are fine. If you're going to change the 19 to a 20 and change the 21 to a 22, do them both. Don't just do one or the other, but both of them is fine. However, they're also changing D23 into a 24, and I think that's wrong. That's just wrong. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It is stamina draining. It is very tiresome, but it is not a 24. It's too easy to be a 24. It's been asked by a lot of people, far more than most of the 24s. It's just, no, that's just wrong. Like, it just feels wrong to me. You want to change the bottom two? That's fine. Just don't mess with the D23. That feels stupid. Beethoven Virus, double 8 is going to an 11. I believe this is the original freestyle chart. I think. I haven't played it in a long time, so I could be wrong. But if that's the original freestyle chart, that's a really big move. I understand it because it has a lot of weird pattern jumping and stuff like that. And has this turn, which, you know, where you turn across the bottom, and I think you do it across the top as well. But that's a really big move. They must have really, really hated this one to change it that much. I don't know what's going on with the version of the chart that I have right now. It lists twice that they're going to change the double 20 to a 21. There's no other way to say it. I mean, I don't like that. I think that there are a lot of old songs that have a more recent added chart that came in Fiesta or something like that. And I think all of them have a 20. Yeah, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later because some of the other ones are being changed to a 20. But I think just to keep them all at the same level, I think, you know, like Turkey March being a 20 and Winter being a 20 and Beethoven Virus being a 20, I think those are all fine. So changing this to 21 doesn't make any sense to me. There is one in the middle. I think it's an 18. And I'm assuming that this is a misprint. And what was actually supposed to happen is that they're claiming the 18 will also change. That I'd be fine with. I think that's a totally reasonable change. I will try and add in the comments below if I find out anything about what was actually supposed to go there. Because it definitely looks like a misprint that's written twice. Blazing D19 is going to a 20. That's totally reasonable. Blazing D20, or Blazing D19, does not have a lot of steps, but it has a lot of really, really weird turns. And I think moving it up to a 20 is entirely reasonable. Breakout Double 22 is being lowered 2 ratings to a D20. I'm going to go ahead and say this is just a bad chart. I Wish they would just remove it from the game entirely. It's just a bad chart. I don't like it at all. I think it's a little too easy for a 22. Maybe this is a little drastic to move it to a 20, but it's just not a good chart overall. So it's fine. Whatever you want to call it is fine. Now, Canon D22 is one of the older Nightmare charts that's been around. It was a boss chart all the way back in Exceed. And I don't think it's hard enough to be a 23. I think 22 is a good rating for it. Changing it to a 23, it doesn't have enough steps, basically. It is a short song already, and then it just doesn't have enough steps. It does have a very weird section where you run across the top, jump, 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 run across the top, jump, 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 run across the bottom, jump, jump, jump. And that can be stamina draining, but I just think the song overall is too short and it doesn't have enough steps to justify a 23 rating. I think a 22 rating is better. Chicken Wing, 11, going to a 13. Same thing. I think this is just to enable rank on some more charts. I don't see any reason to make this change, but it's okay. Chicken Wing Double 23 is going down to a 22. This has more steps than Canon D. The only reason that I can see for making this is that it is very heavily in the center, and it doesn't have a lot of crazy turns. So I think, once again, we're seeing that this is being re-rated by somebody that doesn't like doing turns, or that thinks turns are hard, and thinks running in place is really easy. I will say that Chicken Wing was probably one of the easier 23s, but it's not bad enough that it should change. I think this is really questionable. Chimera D25 is being changed to a D26, and it's about freaking time. This has been a stupid rating for the last 5 years. It really should have been a 26 a long time ago. That's a very welcome change. At the same time, Cleaner D24 is being changed to a D25. Same thing. These were dumb ratings. These should have been changed a long time ago. These were a long time coming. Crash Day is not listed, and I believe that is because Crash Day is not going to make an appearance in Pump It Up XX. I think it's going to be gone from the game. If it comes back, if we get Crash Day, the D26 needs to be changed to 24. It is very important that if we take these ones that are rated too low and we move them up, we need to take that one that's rated too high and move it back down. We need to get these things in order. I don't think it's going to be a problem because I think the song is going to be gone from the game. But if it shows up, we got to get that rating right. But I'm very happy about these two. Chimera and Cleaner both needed to go up. They both went up. We're very happy. Cleaner D26 is good where it is, and it hasn't been changed. I'm very happy about that. Crossover Double 14 has been changed to a 15. I think I've played it literally once. I don't remember it at all. I'm afraid I have no opinion on that. Chico's Post 21 has been changed to a D22. Extremely good. That's a very hard chart. That and Matador both felt kind of too hard for 21. They felt very stamina draining, very intense for a D21. So I'm glad that's a good change. Destination D13 is being changed to a 14 just because of how interesting the turns are and how much movement you have to do for the chart. I think that's a good change. Do you know that Old School has been an 18 for years? Changing it to a 19 is fine. It is very hard. It is very weird. I think that's fine. That's a totally reasonable change. Dr. M D16 is, again, one of those very old charts. I think it's been around since Exceed or Exceed 2, and it's never changed. And it has a lot of weird, runs into a triple jump and just some very, very high intense type patterns. So I think I would have been okay with 17. I think moving it to an 18 is okay. That's a fine change. I think a lot of these are just kind of bringing the old charts in line with what we do now without changing the chart. Just give it an appropriate rating as if it had been written today. Elise D16 going to D17, fine. It's not that drastic, but it does have a very high note count. It has a lot of steps, and giving it a higher rating because of the high number of steps is fine. Extravaganza D17, I think, I believe it was originally a 16 and it's been moved up to 17 before. Now it's being moved up to an 18. Again, I think that's fine. There's a lot of drills in the chart, and I think the drills make it hard. And a lot of people don't really know how to do that last run, the very last run in the ending, which requires you to walk all the way across the top. It requires you to run across the red arrows, and that's very difficult to do. So I think that's a good change as well. Now, Extravaganza D19 is a weird chart. I dislike it a lot. I really kind of wish it would go away. But again, I think it's harder than it's been rated, so 20 is a good rating for that. That's a good change. Final Audition D17 is being changed to an 18. I don't understand why they would change this and not change Final Audition 2. I think both of those are very similar charts. They have almost the exact same difficulty rating. It's not high numbers of notes. It's not a whole lot of steps, but it is weird turns, weird patterns. I don't understand why change one and not the other. I'm fine with changing it to an 18. I wish they would also change Final Audition 2 to an 18. On the other hand, Follow Me, double 18, being moved down to a 17. Fine. I'm fine with it. It's not particularly hard. It is going to feel weird that it has an S17 and a D17, though, because very, very often when you have the same chart being moved onto two pads, they add one difficulty rating because it's on double. So I'm surprised that they didn't use this as an excuse to try and lower the single as well. But we'll see how it plays. We'll see what happens with this. Get Your Groove On! Double 21 is going to a double 22. That's fine. This felt kind of hard. It is very high intensity. It is very tough. Especially if you're trying to get a stage pass. It feels very, very punishing to try and stage pass it if you're at the level where you're trying to stage pass 21s. So this is a good change. Gun Rock D22 is a chart nobody's ever liked and nobody's ever made any sense out of, and there have been fights about this for years. 24 is probably a very acceptable rating. If we're going to keep some of the stuff like Trashy Innocence rated at a 24, I think Gun Rock 24 is a totally reasonable change and probably should have been rated that to begin with. It's just too hard to be a 22. This will also move it into a higher bracket for randoms, and I think that's more appropriate. If you went to a tournament that played D21 and 22s, you were always living in fear of Gun Rock. Women's final at the USPF was living in fear of getting Gun Rock. So I think this is way more appropriate to get it out of there, put it in the higher bracket, just level out the levels a little bit more. Hi Bye, D18, going to a D19. Why? It's fine at D18. It's a long song. Again, it feels a little bit long, and the sync is really bad. So I think that's part of why it kind of frustrates people a little bit, because it's hard to score on, given that the syncing to the music is a little bit weird. They did not mention Hi Bye D20. I hope that's because it's removed from the game. I don't think they're going to do that, but we can hope, right? I hope it's gone. If it's not gone, they haven't said anything about changing the rating, which is kind of crazy because as it stands, it is one of the hardest D20s in the game. So I'm hoping nothing interesting goes for that. Moving on. Ignis Fatuus, the 15 is being moved to a 17. That's entirely appropriate. It's too hard for its rating. I think that's correct. Now, there's been some argument over what's going on with these next two. According to this chart, it says the 17 has been moved to an 18, and the 19 has been removed from the game. However, I've seen some arguments on Twitter that what actually happened is the 19 moved down to an 18, and the 17 was removed from the game, which I would prefer, honestly. I think that would be better. I think the 17 is not a very good chart. Excuse me. I think the 17 is not a good chart. If you were to call the 17 a 19, I would be happier with it. I think it's just too hard for the rating that it has, and it doesn't really flow well in the way that we make charts now. Which is fair, because it's been out for 6 years or something. It was made a very long time before Fiesta 2 was public. And so I don't know which one of those has been changed. One of those two charts is gone, and the other one is an 18. I think I'm okay with it either way. I think the 19 is easier than a 19. I think the 17 is harder than a 17. And getting rid of one of those and making the other one an 18 will fix all of the problems. So whatever ends up happening with that, I think it's going to be good for the game regardless. Imprinting. 12 going to 13. I don't remember the chart. I'm going to have to play it now because it's going to be available for rank, but I don't remember it, to be truly honest. Imprinting D20 is going to a 21. I think that's absolutely reasonable. It's a very long song, and it feels kind of punishing because of how long it is. However, if that's being changed, then 4 Seasons of Loneliness should also be changed to a 21. It hasn't been mentioned on here. I don't know if the song is even still going to be in the game. But if 4 Seasons of Loneliness is still in the game, I would like to see that 20 also changed to a 21 for the same reasons as Imprinting. It's a long song. It feels very punishing to go all the way through it. And so I think both of those together are very similar difficulty, and they should both go to 21. By the same token, Interference going from 21 to 22. The first half is fairly easy, and then the last half is very, very difficult. I think 21 is probably a better rating, but 22 is okay. The ending is very, very hard. So I think that's an okay change. Love is a Danger Zone. D20. Again, one of the very well-known charts. Going to 21. I disagree. But as I've said a few times now, I think whoever has been changing these ratings thinks turns are very difficult. And Love is a Danger Zone D20 is very famous for being a difficult turn chart. If you don't like doing hard turns on double, you're not going to like this chart. So, given that what they seem to be doing is making things with a lot of turns rated higher, I can accept. I don't like it, but I can accept it. Maria, D19 going to D20. I think it was overrated already. I don't think this is a good change. This is one of those newer charts anyway, so I guess we haven't really played it enough to feel super, super confident with it. But I think 19 was fine. Going to 20 is weird. Mr. Larpus. Again, very famous, very old. It's been downrated in the past because it was so old. It has several 16th note runs at 190 BPM. This is totally necessary. This should have happened a long time ago. Having this 14 go up to a 16 is a very good thing. I would also like to see the 17 go up to an 18, personally. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would like to see that because I think the 17 is also a little underrated. Naissance 2, going from 19 to 20. This is one of those charts nobody really likes to learn unless you're a tournament player. People don't really like learning this one because it's very weird. It has a lot of very weird speed changes in it, and it's difficult for a lot of players to pick a speed that they like. So that's a good change. We have Nakakapangbabag going from 15 to 16. Fine. It's probably in between those two, so calling it either one is okay. Same thing with the double, going from 19 to 20. Given how hard the difficulty is and how hard the gimmick is to keep your eyes on, I think that's a good change. Passacaglia, D24, was made fun of almost on day one when it was released on Fiesta 2. As soon as that patch came in, I asked it the first day. As a matter of fact, I think I asked it on a site read. It's been being made fun of as being too easy for a 24 literally since the day it was made, or the day it was made public. So this is really a long time coming. It should be a 23. Now it's going to be a 23. That's fine. The 22 is not going to be changed, it looks like. I think that's fine. You could change it to a 21, but I think 22 is okay for Passacaglia. Red Swan, D21. That is the chart that has the split run. I think it's okay as a 21, but if you're gonna uprate some of the harder gimmicks in the game, that's a hard gimmick. Okay, let's be honest. That's a very difficult gimmick to get a hold of. So we're just gonna uprate it for its gimmick to how to do that split run. Fine. Reminiscence, again, same thing that I said for the single. It's a very long song. I don't think anything in it is particularly hard, but if you want to raise the rating because it's very long, I can accept. Requiem, D19, coming down to 18. Probably reasonable. Nothing in this chart is really particularly that difficult. It's going to go from being a fairly run-of-the-mill 19 to a little bit of a harder 18, and that's fine. While we're here, notice that Re-Rave does not appear. Again, I believe that's because Re-Rave will not be appearing in Pump XX, but if Re-Rave does come back, the 18 needs to be re-rated. The 18 is too easy for its rating. It has a D18 that is probably the easiest D18 in the game, and it really needs re-rated. It needs to come down to a 17. If the song appears, we'll talk more about that. Sarabanda, D20, going to a D21. The song's a little bit long. It also includes some of those bracket drills that people have trouble sort of understanding. I'm sorry, it doesn't do this bracket. It does this. Yeah, it does just step and then bracket. It has rolling brackets in it. And that's one of the lower charts that uses rolling brackets on double. So it's okay. I think 20 was okay. 21 might be better. Shubnagurath, D17, is one of those middle four, like very heavy turn freeze kind of charts. They added about 4 of those in Prime and Prime 2. And just because of how difficult the turns are, I think changing it to an 18 is a very good change. Solitary 2, once again, we're talking about one of those very old charts. I believe this was one of the bosses for Exceed 2, I think. Excuse me. And a lot of those have been raised just because they're old. They've been downrated for a long time. There are some very difficult turns in Solitary 2 Nightmare, so 19 is probably a better rating. I think that's good. Sugar Conspiracy Theory 17, going down to a 16. Meh. I mean, this chart's very blah to begin with. I think either of those ratings is fine. Super Capriccio, D18, going up to a 19. This is another one that has very, very difficult turns in the middle. Uses the middle 4 and does a lot of crazy turns. So that really needed a higher rating, and it's getting one. I'm glad about that. That's a good change. Super Fantasy, D21. Going to D22. I don't like it. I think it's right, but I don't like it. I think this was one of the harder D21s, but I think it should stay a D21. I don't know. Just because of those visual gimmicks, I guess it's a little bit hard to transition into the final run, like the run that happens right at the end. But that run is what, 140? 145 BPM? It's not fast enough to be that hard. You know, that feels weird. I don't think it needs to go up to 22. Turkey March, we kind of previewed this a little bit earlier when we were talking about Beethoven's Virus. I think this is a good change. All of these harder charts that were added to older songs, so Beethoven Virus, Turkey March, Winter, I think they're all very similar difficulty, and 20 is a good rating for that. That's a good one. Here's one that has gotten a lot of attention. Ugly D. D11 is going to go to D15. And D15 is going to go to D18. The current joke going around the Japanese community is that they seem to have taken into account that you only play this with random step. Notice that this will once again allow you to play both of these charts on rank mode, which feels like just giving people free points at this point. Just give me free rank points. That's fine. Unless the charts are changed, they are still the same chart, only with different tick counts. So that feels very unnecessary to bring them both up like this. And the only way those ratings make any kind of sense is if you force the player to select random step if you ever play it. I will still be playing Ugly D, the new D18, on random step a whole lot. So I guess thanks for the free points, Andamiro. V3, D21, coming down to a D20. No! No! This was a hard D21. This is one of the harder D21s. I have most of the D21s Goldest. I don't have V3. Now, that's partially because it's new and I haven't given it a whole lot of tries. But no, this was one of the harder D21s. This is bad. This needed to stay at D21. Fortunately, the D24 will stay where it is. I think that has an appropriate rating, and I'm glad they're not changing it. Vacuum, D22, coming down to a D21. Okay? Question mark? Maybe. If they're going to change this, I would also like to see them change the D25 and bring it down to a D24. I think that would be a better rating for the boss chart. And if they did that, then I'd be okay with them doing this. Just be consistent, you know? I agree that this one is not the hardest D22 in the game, but I think it could have stayed where it was. Like I say, if they change this, at least be consistent and also change the 25. Because I think the 25 is more in need of changing than the 22. Violet Perfume, I don't care about these charts. I don't like this song. It's boring. If you're going to insist on keeping it in the game, I'm fine with lowering the difficulty for both of these charts. Both the D15 and the D19 are easier than their ratings, so bringing them both down one is totally fine. Winter, as we've discussed a couple of times now, I think to keep it in line with the other classical songs, I think 20 is a good rating for that. That's a perfectly good, perfectly acceptable thing to do. And finally, Shusha, D18, coming down to D17. Very necessary. Absolutely reasonable. Since this is still in the game, it gives us hope that some of the other world music from that era, which is to say, Re-Rave, may appear in the game as well. And if Re-Rave appears, it needs to do the same thing that this is doing and get lowered down one. I'm sure this is not going to be a comprehensive list, but this is the most modern list that I have of the re-rated songs for PIU X2 or XX or whatever you want to call the mix. We'll get more changes I'm sure as the beta test goes on and as we learn more about the game. And I'm sure that some of these are going to be necessitated by other quality of life changes, because we already know that the scoring is going to change. We already know that some of the mechanics are going to work a little bit differently. So I'm sure that those will play into the decisions as to why some of these were changed. And I'm sure that we're going to see more changes in the future. Let me know what you guys think about any of these changes or anything else that you think needs to change out of the returning songs that are coming to PIU XX. Hit me up in those comments below, and we're going to check out some more content tomorrow coming from the IAAPA test build. Thanks for hanging out.